Hello. I'm going to talk about something very dangerous for me today. I'm going to talk about fandom because something's been bubbling in the Premier League, but I've kind of seen this in other places as well that I feel like I might be in a unique position to address. And a manager was actually asked about this recently, and I thought he handled it well. And I would like to kind of watch his answer to these questions, then we'll play off that. But I want to get ahead of one thing, right? Because I don't have a football club and I am American. Those two things generally work against me in these types of conversations. People will suggest that I don't understand fandom, that I don't really know what it means and the passion and all that. I do, right? I am wearing the jersey of a team that just got blown out by 25 points in March Madness, ripped my heart out, stepped on it, stabbed it, threw it out the window, and I am now recording this video as a method of coping. While I am not on the level of the guy in Brazil that tattooed his team's kit all over his body, maybe that's unhealthy, although power to that guy. You can do whatever the hell you want. I am probably on that next tier, right? I'm ride or die with my teams. I know what it feels like. I freaking love sports to my very core, and that's where I'm at. So if you want to come at my fandom, tough time to do it because I'm super salty because of how one of my teams just lost. But there is this bubbling resentment in the Premier League about this juxtaposition between local fans and plastic fans. Right, I believe the way it's worded here is accusations that clubs are pricing out local fans in place of so-called plastic fans from abroad. This question was asked to Ange Postecoglou, who is also from the footballing hinterlands, right? I'm from America. He's from Australia, right? These are areas that are thought of, like if you're a real home and away, English fan, like that might as well be Narnia to you in terms of footballing culture. So he provides an answer that we will now watch.
That's really harsh, yeah. Because I'll tell you why. Because I'm probably plastic and touristy because I was coming from the other side of the world, really passionate about football, and if I could get access to see a Premier League game, that was the world to me.
Yeah, and that same thing applies. Like if the idea that everybody that's not from more than 5 miles away from the stadium is a plastic fan, I'm also a plastic fan. I mean, I've never been to a Premier League match in my life, ever. Right, and I get sit here and talk about I've never been to a La Liga match. I sit here and talk about I've never been to a Serie A match. I sit here and talk about that. Right, but I would be a plastic football fan in this kind of blanket statement and blanket perception that's being expressed in this kind of line of questioning coming out of the English media here.
So to label people plastic or tourists, I don't think that's fair. Just because people live on the other side of the world, this football club has supporters all over the world, have supporters all over the UK that don't always get access to the games of people who live here.
I think this is a really articulate point. I can't wait for a future where Ange Postecoglou is like a commentator or an analyst because I think he's actually going to be a really good one of those. But I don't want to say surprised, but like I believe that I'm going to go one step further than Ange Postecoglou did here. I believe Premier League fans are spoiled for one reason. And I want to say I believe Premier League fans are amazing and incredibly impressive. Right? And I'm not just blowing smoke up their asses here, right? They're really good. English fandom's amazing. The whole concept where the country is like the size of the state of Florida and you can drive the whole thing in a day for any home and away match wherever. Right, like you can drive, any home and away match is like a 3-hour commute almost. I know there's like random 6-hour ones like Plymouth to Newcastle or something. I don't know. But the home and away culture is great. I went to my first non-league match not too long ago, was blown away by the support. So I'm not suggesting that the fans are anything other than fantastic, but I do think they're spoiled because what I feel like you're missing here, if this particular line of questioning in the English media, and there's another quote tweet I'm going to kind of get to later. Is that those foreign fans, right? He's talking about fans of Tottenham that exist outside the UK. That's why you have what you have, okay? You're like England is not the only country with passionate football fans. Turkey's over here burning down stadiums and trying to joust players in the middle of games, which is a terrible way to express your passion, but it's inarguable that they have a ton of passion, right? It is, right? You've got Boca Juniors against River Plate. Unbelievable fan support, right? The dude that got a tattoo of his full team's kit was in Brazil. You're telling me they're not passionate about the game either, right? The idea that the passion for the game is what has made the Premier League the best league in the world is foolish. Right? I mean, just because the fans are great and the passion is there. No, the reason the Premier League is the best team in the world, the reason West Ham's winning a European Cup for the first time since Julius Caesar was invading Gaul, right, is because it's because of all the money that the Premier League, being a juggernaut globally, brings in. The Premier League is a global league. Global. The vast majority of people that watch it are not in England. They're not. Honestly, it's because on 3 p.m. on Saturday, apparently you just can't, which is crazy to me, right? But they're not in England. They're watching it in the US, China, India, West Africa, anywhere else in the world, right? And you add all that up, and it's way more than the people that are watching in England. And it is necessary. The reason the Premier League has all that money and West Ham's doing all that winning, as I was just saying, is because of the money coming in from that. Right? Because of all these plastic fans and people that are on the trip of a lifetime and want to see one Premier League game, that's the reason that the Premier League is able to buy the best players in the world and continue to feed into this system where everybody wants to watch the Premier League because because it is the best team in the world. Best team in the world, best league in the world. Right? And if you're an English fan, you have to be able to live with that, or else you're just going to turn into one of these countries that has amazing fandom but doesn't have that type of money, right? Because I don't think Premier League fans maybe realize how lucky they have it. Your best players are all right there. All of them. If you're a fan of Boca Juniors and River Plate, you're watching your favorite team, but the best players from those two teams, they're gone, brother. They're in Europe. They're playing for Premier League teams. Right? Or if you're in, I've been to a match in Austria. Unbelievable support and atmosphere. Austria Vienna against Sturm Graz was the match. It was great, right? But outside of Austria, nobody gives a shit. I like, respectfully, right? Sometimes they'll break into Europe and maybe do something alongside Salzburg, right? But nobody cares. And because nobody cares, they're not able to keep their best players there, right? The league standard isn't anywhere near the league standard of the Premier League in Argentina or in Austria. Right? The reason the Premier League is able to have all its nice things, the reason if you're a Liverpool fan, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Jordan Henderson and whoever, Curtis Jones, those guys are still there. And you've got Mo Salah, right? And you've got Darwin Núñez. You've got, all of these great players is because of the international global appeal of that league. So that's a deal you've made with the devil there, right? Because you cannot have it both ways. You cannot have a non-league vibe with the best players in the entire world. You can't pay for it. Obviously, maybe in a perfect world, you individually would be able to choose whether you want to live in a world where Liverpool and Manchester United have 30,000 seat stadiums. Nobody outside England gives a shit at all. And you're able, you're just competing there. And then, I don't know, Real Madrid's winning the Champions League every year while PSG is a plucky underdog trying to make it happen. If you wanted to choose that world, you'd be able to. But that ship has sailed. This game is up. The Premier League is already a global league with global attention and global fan bases and allegedly plastic fans that have favorite teams. Like, for an example, Man United Trey. I don't know a lot about him. That dude that runs that Twitter account. He just recently went to his first Manchester United game. That guy's been dying on hills for Manchester United on Twitter for like 7 years. I don't know exactly how long, but he has been one of the number one crusaders for Manchester United, which has not been the easiest job since Sir Alex Ferguson left. But he's attached his entire personality to the damn thing, and he just went to his first game. Are we really going to say that guy's not as legitimate a fan as somebody that grew up 2 miles away from Old Trafford and has been home and awaying with Manchester United their entire life? Like, obviously, that person's been involved in a lot more key moments for Manchester United, but are they really a bigger fan? I mean, maybe the answer is yes, but is it my right to decide the answer to that question? Because at the end of the day, aren't you a fan of a team if you decide that you're a fan of a team and you passionately support that team any way that you can, whether you live right next door or on the other side of the world? And it's the people that live on the other side of the world that allow those teams to acquire and keep the best players. The tweet I wanted to get to is Stan Collymore, who's a former player who I have no real issue with the concept of sitting down and having reasonable takes. This was his quote tweet was kind of just what set off my need to talk about this in the first place. So let's talk about it. It's the idea that let me find this that how to both embrace global support and to look after and appreciate the people who made the product so special, home base fans. I think it is self-righteous, and this is part of the spoiled maybe mentality, that the idea that English fans are so special that that's why the Premier League is great. I started this video saying English fans are amazing, but they're not the only amazing fans. Like, there is a reason the Argentine League in that great match between Boca and River Plate, right, and the fans of all those other teams, right, that league is not one of the biggest leagues in the world, that the Austrian League or the Turkish League is not one of the biggest leagues in the world, that La Liga and Inter, or La Liga in Serie A, I mean, Inter might as well be Serie A right now, but that those two leagues are having serious financial issues. Are you trying to tell me that Spanish and Italian fans aren't, able to at least be within a shout of English fans for level of rabid support? I mean, did you even see Napoli after they won the league, right? Like, it was freaking nuts. It was insane. But they're not the biggest league in the world. They're not. Because they don't have the same global appeal that the Premier League has been able to maintain. And that is a deal that goes both ways, right? You can't have all of the foreign fans and then, you basically use those foreign fans to make as much money as possible, but then somehow attempt to exclude them entirely from the match day experience. And then his next point is, crucially, they simply can't support the club in the same way. He does say right before that like the passion and loyalty of supporters abroad can match that of home-based supporters. I actually disagree with this. I have a completely different take on this, and this might be the most controversial part of the video, so put your seatbelt on. If you disagree with it, that's fine. But Manchester City, I think, is an excellent test case for this. Because Manchester City is a great example of a club that does not have international fans on anywhere near the same level. And what happens to Manchester City, right? They get made fun of for having no fans because they can't sell out their stadium for the 72 home matches or whatever you have to play every single year when you're one of the biggest clubs in the world and you're having to play all of these matches, right? Manchester City has great local support. They do. Ask anybody in Manchester. Like, I've worked with people that live in Manchester. There's the red side and the blue side, right? Manchester City was in the third division. Everybody was blowing smoke up their ass about how great their fans were because they were selling out every game, right? But now they're in a 60,000 or whatever seat stadium playing 72 home matches a year with just that local support because they don't have the international fans that Liverpool and United and even Tottenham has, right? That allows them to sell out all of those stadiums even when they're on preseason tours, for crying out loud. Right. And so then they get made fun of for all of a sudden they don't have fans anymore just because they're trying to play with the big boys, but they don't have the big boy international fandom. I think the international fandom is what allows clubs like Liverpool and Manchester United and Tottenham and Chelsea, right? Arsenal. I'm going to get clowned. So, well, that's the five. Manchester United, Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea. Yeah, that's the five. And then City's the sixth one. Yeah, I got them all. I'm not going to get clowned. Right, but the reason that all of those clubs are able to exist the way that they do, and that's not a knock on the local fans, there just aren't enough local fans, right? Like actually local fans to be able to fill these giant stadiums for every game and giant allotments for home and away every single time. It's unfair to ask the local fans to have to be able to do that. And then he says one more thing, and eventually the model, when it tips from reliance on regulars to high-spending tourists, will kill the atmosphere. I'm really sorry to break it to you. That's kind of already happened. Now, I'm saying this as somebody that's been to lower league games in England. There's a completely different vibe. There's a familiarity with the players. There's a familiarity with the chants. Now, I have never been to a Premier League game, but I have watched a ton of them. And I understand now, having been to a lower league game physically and watching a Premier League game on TV, the difference, right? Because with this international appeal, the atmosphere is already different. Right, because you have a crowd of people who might not know all of the chants, right, or all of the songs, or even all of the players, right, and that changes the atmosphere. It does, like inevitably, right? You're not going to get the exact same atmosphere you get in a lower league English match at a Premier League match, as long as the Premier League is as large of a global brand as it is. This isn't like a threat, like will kill the atmosphere. It's already changed. I don't think it's killed, but it's more like just a massive event, because that's what it is. Every Premier League match, particularly for one of the big six, is a massive global event, right? That a ton of people are watching outside of England, and a ton of people that aren't English want to attend, but they won't understand the local customs of English fandom in the same way, which will in turn shift the atmosphere to more of a generic crowd atmosphere and less of a footballing atmosphere. So this isn't something like to worry about. It's something that's literally already happened as part of the trade-off to the Premier League becoming a global powerhouse. And then he says the idea that this is going to lead to empty seats, right? And I don't think that's true, because at the end of the day, English fans are English fans. They're home and away, and generally speaking, they're for life. And so they're not going to go anywhere, which means in this situation where he's talking about if you don't instantly provide like a smaller allotment for tourist fans and this large allotment for local fans, that somehow the club's going to rot from the inside. No, that's not the case. Like if Manchester United got relegated, sure, some of the dudes from the US, some of the dudes from India and China and West Africa probably wouldn't be going to the matches as much, but the local fans would still be going. They're always still going to be going, right? Isn't that the most famous thing about English football fans or great football fans in general, is that your team is your team, right? Or whatever, what the latest greatest Eric Cantona quote about how, your club is your club and you can't change it and so on and so forth. So then what's the concern about empty seats? I realize that maybe makes it sound like the English fans are being taken for granted here. I don't think ticket prices should be jacked up way too much. I'm not sitting here proposing that the ticket prices should be ridiculously high and that nobody local should be going to the games. All I want to bring to the surface is that the international part of the Premier League is what drives the Premier League to be the Premier League. So the idea that, like the idea that plastic fans or foreign fans are going to the games shouldn't be a surprise, and it shouldn't be considered a bad thing. Unless you don't want to win European trophies anymore, unless you don't want to be able to afford having the Rolls Royce of teams all up and down the league and getting the most Champions League spots through, you're going to get 5 Champions League spots this year because the team has a lot of the best, the league has a lot of the best players in the world. And that's because of all of these international fans. So I feel like at this point, I'm probably at the risk of repeating myself, but I just really want to make sure I'm clear on everything, because I'm not hating on any like group of people here. I love English fandom. I love the home and away thing. I just think that it's time to stop pretending like the Premier League isn't different and acknowledge that the reason that it is different and that might, some people might not like that, is also the reason it's able to be wildly successful. And hopefully there's a way for all of this to healthily coexist by literally just keeping ticket prices low so everybody can go to the games. That sounds like a freaking good solution. All right, see ya.